Also, one last thing on Stop Killing Games. Developers aren't confused about what gamers want. We want the same thing as gamers. We want software and games to stop being deprecated and to work afterwards, or at least be given over to community that can make them work. The problem with the Stop Killing Games initiative is they can't decide clearly whether they want the community to pick up the pieces or they want the developers to, but they also can't realize that the developer is involved in those pieces. Even if you want to make the game open source or something like that for everyone to use and then recreate the game quickly, the developer has to put it out. And Ross's whole argument with this is we can keep the games online if we can just get the server binaries from the developer. But that poses another problem. Sometimes code is deprecated that we use to make these servers, server tools and things like that. Also with that, sometimes it's licensed and our hands are cuffed and we can't give it out. So I really don't understand why we want to keep arguing about this. A really, really good game developer and decompiler could, in theory, recreate the server using AI tools. It's very, very possible. I'm not saying it's ever been done, but it's very possible in today's day and age, especially with AI advancing. This still doesn't solve the problem of software and games deprecating themselves. There is not much we can do about that other than passing a law that forces them to either come up with a plan to make it public when they want to end it, or they want to make it indefinite, which means, they pass away and you don't get their product. But the argument I'm hearing from a lot of people is screw you want to make it so they have a choice. We don't want developers to have a choice. We want to force them to release things. This ignores a single individual who makes an online video game and then is dead in the future and people are mad that the game isn't online anymore. I get that this is a fringe scenario and most people would understand that the person died. But neglecting it over and over and over as an argument is not helping. Saying that the plan should be for the developers to come up with a plan of their own is also not going to work because people just don't do that. They don't come up with plans because other people force them to. Coming up with a plan to make developers decide whether or not on the page, the store page and the marketing, whether it's going to be indefinite or not, that is a realistic expectation that you can give developers. But expecting them to hand out software that they don't own the rights to is not a realistic expectation. It's literally illegal. We can't do anything about that. So if you want to pass laws, you have to work within the confines of the law. Okay, so to all the people that said Ross isn't saying we need clear labeling, let me show you his first video. There it is, Accursed Farms, the largest campaign ever to stop publishers from destroying games. What does he put here? He puts his own little label. This game will cease working after 1 year. No, I'm actually convinced Ross might actually have dyslexia after he wrote that, because obviously that's poor English. I would just say this game will cease to work eventually. But that's because I am a game developer and I understand that game developers and big publishers, corporate or indie, shouldn't be forced to come up with a time frame for when their game is going to end, especially seeing as how literally all video games crash after a certain time period. This happens because whether the game is online or not, the client-side files are no longer updated to work with newer hardware. The reason this happens is because video games are delicate with something called timing. I've seen a lot of software developers that don't understand this concept of timing that are arguing for keeping games alive forever. I'm, again, for that idea. The problem with that idea to keep games and any software alive forever is the fact that hardware becomes newer and newer in time. And if you don't update the software, it may stop working with newer hardware. Now, the good news is this problem should, in theory, get better with time, but it's not for certain. The theory would be, as computers get faster, games will get faster to keep up with the timing of faster computers. Thus, in the future, games will not crash as much. But again, this is only in theory. The reason you just saw a prototype crash on my computer was because the game is so old, it has calls that may last upwards of half a second or a second, and my GPU just skips straight over that. These calls are happening in the graphics buffer itself, so it's crashing the game. And most importantly, the developer cannot predict when this is going to happen. They can only sunset the game, stop working on it, and pray that computers don't get so much faster that it outperforms their game and makes their game stop working.
Alright, so a lot of people have disagreed with my stop killing games plans, and that's okay. It's something you have to think about. But I just came up with the best one, and just hear me out. Just as simple as this, a law that says you can't make a single player only game require online. Let's just ban that practice. I don't think any game developer besides the big corpo huggers like Pirate Software would disagree with me. He might not even disagree. The real problem with live service games is they cost so much money to keep online, when games like Hitman, as mentioned in my comments, is completely single player, yet requires online. The only thing Hitman has is a leaderboard. I think it also saves like your stats and stuff, but the programmers could easily just program around that and make it not do any of that when you're offline. They could totally make the game work offline. I don't think the issue is people sunsetting games or ending games. I do get that that sucks in certain scenarios, but let's be real. The issue most people have with these online games is most of the time they're single player experiences that just require a little bit of online for some reason. Reasons that could usually easily be programmed around if a new law was passed.